A corpse should be left well alone. Oh, I know very well how the secrets beckon so sweetly. Only an honest death will kill you now. Eliminate you from your wild curiosity.
Well, if you aren't convinced of Elden Ring being a story of motherhood and childbirth, you should be now. FromSoft has been using these themes for many games now, and none more so than the beloved Bloodborne. The common threads between Bloodborne and Elden Ring seem to keep growing, and I believe this DLC trailer did that yet again. Perhaps turning back to Yharnam and the Good Hunters will shed some light on what we can expect from the shadow of the Erdtree. What's up everybody, I am Senator Tarnished, and today we are going to be breaking down the newest DLC trailer and provide some explanation and possible predictions for what will be hidden behind that veil. For those that don't know, my channel uses human psychology to decipher the lore and provide a deeper meaning behind the game and the story it is telling us. What follows is my speculation. That being said, nearly all of the predictions made on this channel have come to fruition. Yes, that is a shameless self-plug. Anywho, let's get on with the breakdown. In the opening of the first DLC trailer, we see Miquella's cocoon resting on pelvic bones, a clear and overt symbol of the womb. Now, in the newest DLC trailer, we are immediately struck by the image of the womb yet again. Only this time, Marika is reaching in, grabbing golden hair and ascending the steps, announcing herself as the new god, leaving behind her shadow. While this is happening, the narrator is telling a very important story. This is the birth of both gold and shadow. I believe what is taking place in this cutscene is the very beginning. Birth of Marika, the goddess, by betraying her other self, the Gloam-Eyed Queen, thus creating the above and below, the persona and shadow, the Erdtree and shadow tree. I believe this to be the fracturing of the one great. Everything there is came from the one great, then came fractures and births. Everything born of the mistake. If gold and shadow fracturing and a giant image of a vagina isn't births and fractures, then I don't know how else they would get that across to us. FromSoft is no stranger to showing us the very beginning in their DLC trailers. In the Old Hunters trailer, we see Gearman limping his way through the fishing hamlet to defile the corpse of Mother Koss, unleashing her wrath and the hunter's curse. Perhaps what we are witnessing is the very beginnings of the wrath of the Gloam-Eyed Queen. Yes, I am suggesting that Messmer is the orphan of the Gloam-Eyed Queen, just as we see in the Old Hunters with the orphan of Koss. Let's start with where this cutscene takes place. The visceral sounds of flesh and bodies all compiled together, and a bright light shaped like the birth canal. I am predicting we are inside a womb. Perhaps it's a metaphorical womb, perhaps it's a literal womb. In my video, Understanding the Shadow of the Erdtree, I speculated that where this very beginning would take place is inside the womb, aka the crucible, a place where all life is blended, a place of fertility and potential. By this point, images of female reproductive organs, motherhood and childbirth completely saturate the artistic direction of Elden Ring. Even the new enemy, announced just days before this trailer dropped, is another overt symbol. FromSoft is priming our subconscious in a very particular way.
Do you still think the map isn't a fetus? No! It's a finger!
What is Marika reaching into here? Well, thanks to the narrator, we can deduce that this scene is the beginning of Marika's reign as god. And the only way that happens is by killing the anti-god, the Gloam-Eyed Queen. I think it's fair to assume that what Marika's reaching into is the Gloam-Eyed Queen. Even though we only get a little glimpse, the base game does a great job of showing us visual clues surrounding the Gloam-Eyed Queen, most of which looks just like what we see here. We know that the Golden Order is only established when Destined Death is removed, meaning Marika's order and her godhood only start when that happens. But who is the Gloam-Eyed Queen? Well, it's Marika, just her darker half, her shadow. Marika is literally reaching into her shadow and taking the only redeemable and golden thing and creates the rune of life with it, leaving the rune of death sealed away, creating her shadow. Now, we know this is Marika because she is wearing the same bracelets, the same black gown, and because Miyazaki himself tells us this is where Marika first stepped foot and became a god. And what we see in the opening of the trailer is just that, Marika ascending steps, becoming a god. In my opinion, this is the only explanation that makes sense. This next line is incredibly important, an affair from which gold arose and shadow was born. This right here tells us everything we need to know. FromSoft is no stranger to duality and opposition. Nearly every game of theirs starts with this nothingness, then comes fractures and disparity. As above, so below, light and dark, heat and cold. The same is even more true in Elden Ring. When one thing is created, its opposite is as well. You cannot have the birth of gold without the birth of the shadow. The two get co-created at the same exact time. What this cutscene is showing us is the birth of Marika, the golden goddess, and Marika, the Gloam-Eyed Queen, one ascending the steps of godhood, the other left to rot in the shadow. The outside even reflects this, Marika walking towards the golden skies, while the shadow turns to gloam-colored skies, indicating whose presence is where. My guess is when Marika walks through those doors, they reseal and hide everything away left inside. I believe what we are witnessing in the first 45 seconds of this trailer is the same story being told to us by the statue in Fair Missoula. Marika the Golden, representing consciousness, order, and the Elden Ring, ascending out of the chaos, and what's left is the shadow, a dark and twisted place of suppression and rage. Again, this statue of the little girl praying in a very orderly fashion, while surrounded by 3 wolves, is this same story. A separation of order and chaos, from persona and shadow. Now, what's really interesting are these few seconds right here. What causes this type of explosion and rush of air? Perhaps a meteor hitting the earth. If Marika is the Elden Ring, which represents order, and order is the Elden Beast, then I think what is causing this sudden rush of air is the Elden Beast crashing into the lands between, like a bomb going off. You can even hear a beast roaring in the background.
Old arose. And so too was Shadow born.
I am suggesting that this scene is the very beginning. The beginning of Marika the Goddess, the Elden Ring, the Elden Beast, the Erdtree, the Lands Between, and more. Think back to the old hunters. The fishing hamlet was also the very beginning. The beginning of the Great Ones, the Hunter's Curse, dreams and nightmares, the beginning of Gehrman's torment and despair, and it all starts with the defiling of a pregnant corpse. It is the very root of the pain and trauma that sets in motion the events of the game. It's not until we go back to that place that we can unveil the true ending.
Sweet child of Kos, turned to the ocean. A bottomless curse, a bottomless sea, accepting of all that there is and can be.
What followed was a war unseen.
This war is a war of suppression and veiling. A war to keep everything that goes against Marika's godly order sealed in the shadow. A war of purging her shadow, of everything graceless. Messmer seems to be the enforcer of this act. Only the more and more Marika and Messmer do this, the darker and more dangerous the shadow becomes. You can see the ash and debris from this war is rising and enveloping the shadow tree. This war that is trying to seal the shadow is actually feeding it, making it more and more powerful and dangerous. Perhaps Messmer knows this truth and is doing whatever he can to lash out. Why would Marika do this? Well, on a science fiction and fantasy scale, it may be as simple as trying to keep her enemies at bay and making sure no opposition stands in her way. However, I believe the truth is because this is something that we all do. We all wage this inner war, never seen to the outside world, a war of suppressing our unwanted and undesired traits. That is quite literally what the shadow is for. It's a battlefield of accepted versus rejected. The next logical question is to ask, well, why does Marika become a god after this? If this is her ascending to godhood, why does she have to betray her shadow in order to do so? In my Gloam-Eyed Queen video, I explain the role of the shadow and the effect it has on the rest of the psyche. In a nutshell, the shadow is the counterbalance to the ego persona. When the ego gets too inflated, also known as narcissism to the nth degree, it literally thinks itself a god. But the shadow will knock it down a peg and bring it back to reality. But what if one could rid themselves of their shadow and ascend to stratospheric heights? That's pretty tantalizing. A god they will become, at least in their own minds. When one completely detaches themselves from their shadow, there is no counterbalance to this ego inflation, and the ego grows and grows into a god. The shadow is quite literally a god killer, both in-game as well as in psychology. If you want a deeper dive into this thought, please go watch my Gloam-Eyed Queen video as I go into great detail. What happens next is a sudden and distinct shift in tone, a more hopeful and joyous tone about the future and what Mikola is doing. My speculation is that what takes place between Messmer's tyranny and this sudden shift in tone are the Shattering and Night of the Black Knives. My guess is that the shadow grew and grew and grew until it could no longer be held back and found its way to the surface, commencing in that harrowing night. After the destabilization of Marika's Golden Order, she shatters the Elden Ring, setting Mikola's plans into motion, to find his way back to the beginning and heal that broken and betrayed part of Marika, just as we good hunters did in Bloodborne. Mikola strips himself away of everything and hopes that we, the Lord that is promised, will follow in his footsteps and do the work he has laid out. Before I wrap this video up, I want to do a quick prediction of what I think will occur in the shadow of the Erdtree. If you recall in the Old Hunters DLC for Bloodborne, it is only when we get to the fishing hamlet that we are able to finally see what horrors occurred and why the world is the way it is. The fishing hamlet was the very beginning, the very cause of the hunter's curse and nightmare. And it was caused by killing a god, and not just any god, but a pregnant one, leaving behind an orphan. My prediction is that this is the same thing we are going to see in the DLC. We know something terrible happened to Marika during pregnancy, or when her child was an infant. The Song of Lament, the Iron Virgins, the death spear in her belly, the statue behind Messmer, and more all point in this direction. The themes of child loss permeate Elden Ring. I believe the Gloam-Eyed Queen, and by extension Marika, was pregnant with twins. Due to complications during this pregnancy, one twin had to be sacrificed to save the other. A literal split of life and death. Not unlike Marika betraying the Gloam-Eyed Queen to ascend to godhood. What is left behind this betrayal is the Gloam-Eyed Queen, perhaps dead, perhaps sealed away, and her orphan, Messmer. Basically, what's left behind is death. Even the character of the orphan bears striking similarities to Messmer. If Marika taking a piece of golden hair from the womb represents everything she accepts about her and society, what is left behind is the discarded and rejected aspects. I believe Marika is taking a piece of Godwyn the Golden and leaving behind Messmer. The golden hair, the rune of life, the black gown down to the waist, all scream Godwyn. If the shadow was betrayed for the sake of Godwyn, it would make sense that he would be its target. He is the chosen one, the very thing held most dear to Marika. Perhaps the two trees in the Shadowlands tell the same story. One strong and upright, full of gold, the other wrapped around like a tangled umbilical cord, slowly sapping the life out of the other. And don't forget the cut item of the entwining umbilical cord. Either way, I believe the ultimate goal for Mikola, the healer, is to reunite these two opposing forces, finally healing the source of this curse, just as the good hunter did in the fishing hamlet. Not only that, but observe the ending of Bloodborne DLC, the true ending of the game, compared to Elden Ring's speculated ending of its DLC. The curse is gone, the veil is lifted, the sky's clear, and the trauma is finally healed. Let me know your predictions in the comments below. If you enjoyed this take, please consider subscribing and liking this video. It really does mean a lot. Thank you and much love.